Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Ukrainian talk show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guests today are Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sasha. Glad to be here as always.
Here. And Ivan Kucherenko from Kyiv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hello, Sasha. Hello, Jonathan. Glad to be here today with you.
Great to see you. And let's start with the movies that you have for us.
Sure, let's start with that.
Excellent.
Ми домовилися, що з понеділка, 12 травня, має розпочатися повне і безумовне припинення вогню щонайменше на 30 днів. Ми разом вимагаємо цього від Росії. Ми знаємо, що нас підтримують у цьому Сполучені Штати Америки.
There's no glory in aggression and conquest. Glory comes from fighting for your country, defending your people, and winning the peace. And that is the message of this moment. All of us here, together with the US, are calling Putin out. If he's serious about peace, then he has a chance to show it now by extending the VE-Day pause into a full, unconditional 30-day ceasefire.
Avec une surveillance assurée principalement par les États-Unis d'Amérique et auquel tous les Européens qui y sont prêts contribueront, et qui permettra d'engager de manière immédiate les travaux et négociations entre les parties prenantes pour bâtir cette paix robuste et durable.
Es muss klar sein, wenn Russland sich diesen Waffenstillstand verweigert, ein Waffenstillstand, der die Grundlage für sofort beginnende Verhandlungen sein kann, dann werden wir die Ukraine weiter verteidigen und wir werden den Druck auf Russland weiter erhöhen.
Dzisiaj Ukraina płaci znowu najwyższą cenę. Cenę krwi za te same wartości, za wolność i niepodległość. Ale nie jest sama.
Thank you. Very good clip. But you see, I'm very disappointed that they all came to the conclusion that there has to be a ceasefire starting on May 12th, and it was agreed with the United States, with Donald Trump. And then Putin, without either agreeing or denying this ceasefire, actually he ignored it completely. Even if he would say, no, I disagree with the ceasefire, so at least he reacted to that. He didn't even react. He didn't bother. What he said that he wants to have negotiations with Ukraine, and he didn't even commit himself to come to those negotiations. So he ignored the ceasefire. It's a little bit more than proposal. It was short of maybe ultimatum, but close to it enough. And yet he came up with his own initiative, not fully contemplated or even
not very well thought through.
Not very thought through the conditions, and he waited until middle of the night, around like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. He wanted to play it for Trump. So he was waiting until it will come time when Trump will be in his during evening hours, and he will consume this proposal and will not be able to reply to Putin, because obviously after that Putin would go to bed and Trump would be sitting on that at least for 12 hours, maybe more. And Trump, instead of saying, hey, my friend, May 12th is the beginning of ceasefire, And if not, you know what we are going to do. But it's not ceasefire. That's not what Trump is all about. Trump is all about his deals with Putin. He is running around the world looking for money. He is desperate because the elections are coming in New Jersey, in New York later on. He has nothing to show. He was humiliated by China, and he had to lower his traffic, the tariffs unconditionally from 145% to 30%. It's staying over 90 days, and then we don't know what's going to happen. And for him, ideal situation would be if there indeed would be some kind of a ceasefire with Ukraine, so Putin would be able to attack Western Europe. And that's how Trump wants to make US great again, by making Europe miserable. That's his way to make America great again. He knows he cannot do anything with China. He cannot do anything with Russia, but he can do a lot against Western Europe with the help of Putin. Putin is his pit bull that he says, attack! And he goes and attacks. And Putin is happy because his mode of operation is continue war. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter against whom, but war, war, war. Because imagine if there is a peace and million well-armed bandits are coming back to Russia. What do you think they're going to do by getting paid $2,000-3,000 a month? They will be getting some miserable, I don't know, what is the social payments in Russia, $50 a month or less. And what do you think they are going to do? They are going to rob. Actually, that's what they're doing in Kursk. In some villages that they freed, they are immediately terrorizing the local Russian population. Are you aware of it, Ivan?
It's actually it's very strange what's happening, and yeah, we've seen from this video that all great European leaders united to support Ukraine, and it was strange that there were no American leader, because in all previous years, America was the first country to defend the democratic values across the world, showing that democracy is the better form of government for countries, that they always can rely on the United States, that the United States will assist and protect them. And now the leader of most in previous most democratic country in the world is trying to do business with a dictator, is destroying those connections with the United States allies, and really puts some short-term objectives like achieving profit from some kind of deals before the long-term goals and objectives of the United States, before the strategy which United States was building for decades, actually. And it looks really strange. There were some kind of theories like President Trump is agent of KGB or FSB, which was recruited years ago during his first visits to Moscow, and sometimes it looks like the same when he says one things, and when one kind of decisions were negotiated, and then he do everything to assist Putin to save Russia, not to stop Russia and punish Russia, but actually to save Russia. It's really weird as for me and as for major Ukrainians, and really don't know where United States policy is going towards. Maybe Jonathan can spread some light on this.
Toss that here, Ivan. You've had the grenade long enough. Okay, it's buzzing. Toss it to me. Okay. Now, one of the
What's going on, Jonathan?
Well, some light that I can shed for you is that the declaration of President Trump. Now, keep in mind, President Trump is also in the midst of all these, admittedly, seemingly contradictory and confusing signals. He has also signaled he also wants to establish the Golden Dome, which is again designed to make the United States impervious to nuclear attack from either Russia, China, or North Korea. And that declaring that policy, he has in effect repudiated the previous Biden administration's nuclear strategy and security strategy, which envisioned being able to wage a nuclear war with 3 nuclear-armed adversaries. And their policy was, we must increase the size of our nuclear arsenal. Now, based on my analysis and experience over the past several decades, that policy, that's simply continuing the old policy of mutually assured destruction, which has no effect on the perceptions of Russia, China, or North Korea. That simply reinforces their belief that nuclear weapons are useful, and therefore a useful instrument not only of great power status, but also for applying pressure against the West. If you are going to successfully counter that strategy, then doing what President Trump is declaring intent to build a Golden Dome, which in effect would neutralize, properly executed, would neutralize their nuclear missile arsenals, which is the thing they fear most, the loss of their power. As a matter of fact, both Putin and Xi, in a recent meeting in Moscow, they declared that the Golden Dome proposal, in their words, was highly destabilizing. Highly destabilizing for what? Not for world peace. It's destabilizing to their power. It's destabilizing for their ability to apply pressure against the West or to use their nuclear arsenals as instruments of coercion and intimidation. So by doing that, because President Trump has declared that he wants to get rid of all nuclear weapons, well, if you're going to do that, you have to, in words of former President Ronald Reagan, you have to render nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete. So by doing that, that is a very large asymmetric response to what Russia and China and also North Korea and Iran are trying to do. And so that is part of the mix, which is very interesting and is going to be interesting to see. I've made previous suggestions as to how most effectively they could carry out this Golden Dome strategy proposal. But when you throw that into the mix where they threaten to President Trump also has been recently declaring, more in line with the Europeans, of now applying sanctions against Russia if Russia refuses to recognize the ceasefire or to engage in one. So this mix of signals is, okay, we're going to do this independently. And you notice that President Trump did not declare Golden Dome as a direct threat to Russia and China. It is a direct threat to their power. It does not threaten their survival. It does threaten their power and their ability to coerce. So it's a very interesting response. And with the European Union and NATO and other allies increasingly agreeing with the U.S. increasingly showing their willingness to apply economic sanctions against Russia and to a certain extent against China with the tariffs. And this is a very interesting coordinated response. I have yet to see indications that the Trump team has formulated a coherent foreign policy strategy doctrine or statement of strategy and doctrine. To the outside observer, it looks very much like a series of ad hoc responses. But I hesitate to say that it's all that disorganized. There is, for example, Project 2025, their document. if you look at that document, you start to get an idea of what the body of experts that they appear to be relying on to a certain extent, where the basis for a new foreign policy strategy would come. So I would respectfully disagree with Sasha that the whole purpose of Trump is simply to get a profit. After all, the man's rich enough; you can't really bribe him with more money. That's ridiculous. The only race that President Trump could possibly be in would be with Elon Musk, and those two are multi-billionaires trying to race toward what I call level 5 prosperity, in which you have more than $1 trillion worth of net worth. Nobody's at that level yet, man. And you can count the ones who are billionaires on, maybe fingers and toes, perhaps. There are billionaires, but again, at that level, it's abstract. It doesn't really mean anything. It's more for bragging rights than anything else. So I disagree that President Trump's foreign policy is solely based on profit or solely based on cutting a deal. He uses the art of the deal paradigm as a starting methodology. He has to this point believed that it is possible to forge a deal with anyone. To his dismay, he is learning that there are leaders in this world who are not interested in doing a deal in the sense that he understands it. Because he misunderstands the Russian attitude toward compromise. The Russians regard compromise as mutual surrender. We regard compromise as both sides get something of what they want, both sides meeting the other person halfway. That's an American concept. The American political system was built on compromise, the willingness to meet the other person halfway. That concept does not exist in Russia. It never has. It never will exist. So we are seeing the Trump administration running headlong into a totally alien foreign policy outlook, and which they are learning to their discomfort to a certain extent that, hey, these guys aren't interested in doing a deal, and they're starting to learn the lessons of history that the nations of Europe learned a long time ago, and that they are remembering as they are standing with Ukraine, and the United States is, however reluctantly, falling in line with the European allies and Ukraine. And so I contend that the correlation of forces, of which the Soviets used to speak, is now still steadily moving in favor of Ukraine, and that the other reports have indicated that Russia's monetary reserves are running short, and that by this fall they will no longer be able to support their war effort monetarily. So time is now running in favor of Ukraine, and I still contend to this point that Ukraine is increasingly gaining the ability to spring a surprise counteroffensive at a moment of its choosing, which will decisively reverse the military situation on the battlefield and make a ceasefire or a de facto armistice unavoidable for Russia. And even though Russia is now caught in what we have talked about as Zugzwang, forced move, no matter what they do, if they stop the war, they lose. If they continue the war, they lose.
Jonathan, tell me please, how much time and money would require to build a Golden Dome?
Depends on what approach you take. It's interesting that if you look at the current Golden Dome proposal, the key thing to remember about the Golden Dome is that they implicitly recognize that there is a hole in the Golden Dome that it cannot fully protect against intercontinental ballistic missile attack. The problem there are really only two ways that you can seal the hole in the Golden Dome. The bill only recognizes one way. They are talking about, if we look carefully at it, there is a $900 million portion of the Golden Dome proposal which is designed to study space-based interceptors. They are correct in that space-based interceptors are the way to seal the hole in the Golden Dome and create a near impervious defense against ballistic missile attack.
So, Jonathan, I didn't ask how to close this hole in the Golden Dome. My question
You're
was
asking how long.
time and money. Time and money, just two factors. I need only two numbers: how much time it needs and how much money would have to be invested.
If you go with the proposal I'm talking about, which nobody else mentions, upgrading the Space Force, that is a faster way. The faster way to do it is depends on how fast Elon Musk can perfect his starships and make them suitable for the Space Force to use and fly. Basically, a starship could hold about a 10-man crew and sustain it for the long term if you're talking about using it as a space fleet. So depending on how fast he can and how fast the Space Force itself can react and have people available to man those starships, and it would not be all at once, not for the concept I'm looking about, but you could get one or two starships into operational into low Earth orbit and have a measurable capability within the next 2 years, given a decision to do it now. That is my perspective. That is, if the Secretary of Defense were to buy into this proposition of, say, let's get a Space Force in being, get one there. Because the moment you introduce that kind of a defense into the strategic equation, you introduce a great deal of uncertainty into the minds. Uncertain. They don't know, okay, they've got a space fleet in being, armed with lasers. They've got it operates there. Do we dare test it?
Yeah.
That's the power. That's the powerful deterrent effect it would have.
Any idea about money involved?
Money. I can tell you what I can tell you right now. What things you would have to cut or eliminate in order to fund this. You'd have to shift funding, and in order to do that, if your aim is to repudiate and make nuclear weapons obsolete, then you do not spend another dime on improving or developing new nuclear weapons. You cancel those contracts. You say, okay, we are not going with offensive nuclear weapons. We are diverting that funding to the Space Force and to strategic defense and perfecting the Golden Dome. Because if you try to build more and better nuclear weapons, at the same time you're trying to build the Golden Dome, you're contradicting yourself. You are pursuing two contradictory objectives. All you have to do when you are concentrating on building the Golden Dome, as far as your own nuclear force is concerned, all you try to do, you just simply maintain. Make sure that the nuclear weapons that you have, no matter how outdated or old or not state-of-the-art they seem to be, make sure that they work.
Okay. Jonathan, under your proposal, it will take anywhere from 5 years to 10 or much more than that. It would require enormous financial commitment. Either way, you're going one way or another way, or you stop building new nuclear weapons and you divert that, but then for 5 years you don't have enough nuclear devices, and China and Russia, they can use it if they want it or in a position to do it. But that's a different question. So we are talking about years to build it. You're talking about then you have to test it, then you have to try it and see. Then you're talking about the weakened strategic defense in order to divert funds, but I don't think even that would work. So you're talking about trillions of dollars, which US doesn't have, of course, as we all know. So basically, I'm surprised the Trump's recklessness by belittling Europe and looking for bridges with Russia, the Middle East Arab countries, Muslim countries, the China, and running all over the place, looking for money, Jonathan. Please admit he is looking for money. He is flying only to countries where they can contribute money to him, to the United States, or wherever. He's not going to fly to Western Europe because he will not get a penny there. He is not flying to Moscow. He's not going to get a penny out of Moscow. They have no money, but he may get some natural resources, maybe Siberia, and then he will exchange with China. Okay, we'll give you this part of Siberia, and you give us a little bit of here, and so on. He is a trader. He is running around. Do you think Churchill couldn't make deal with Hitler? Hitler had a superb economy. So Churchill could make a deal with Hitler. Let's develop together a Rheinmetall. We'll give you some money. We'll give you our engineers. We'll work together. Let's do it, Adolf. He didn't do it, and Eisenhower didn't do it. Sorry, not Eisenhower, but before him, the Roosevelt, obviously. And Donald Trump, he's not the Churchill or Roosevelt or Eisenhower. He is not. He is.
He doesn't need to be.
I don't want to put.
He doesn't need to be.
He is.
This is a different political situation, and you are fundamentally misreading President Trump.
You will see.
You are fundamentally misreading the man, because
Maybe.
with him, money is an instrument. Money is a very useful servant. It is, I will admit, a terrible master if you allow money or the love of money to master you.
Jonathan, how you explain that he's traveling only to countries where he will almost guaranteed get money? If you are saying that he doesn't need any money, he's so rich that it's incredible. So why he is not going to his friends, quote unquote, they're no friends for sure to Trump, but Western Europe, that's where Europe, the United States, all the Western civilization was cradled. That's what it came from. And where Ukraine is trying to be part of it. Donald Trump, instead, he is ruining that in favor of his Arab Muslim friends, China, Russia, or whoever it is. Soon it will be probably Iran. Soon it will be North Korea. That's what's happening with Trump. Please admit, Jonathan.
No, it is not that.
Okay.
It is not that in the least.
No,
I contend that you are fundamentally mistaken.
That's okay.
And we'll see. We will see. We certainly will. We certainly are. And I believe that should the proposals that I'm talking about, particularly for perfecting the Golden Dome, should those enter the debate, and should those be followed as a useful, what I'm proposing is a useful alternative, strategic alternative for achieving the goals that President Trump says that he wants regarding nuclear arsenals and protecting America. And I'm proposing a more cost-effective way of achieving those objectives more quickly than our adversaries or even our allies anticipate can be done. Because right now, I'll guarantee you, no one in this world is thinking or talking about perfecting the Golden Dome through the upgrading of the Space Force with a space fleet. That is a fundamentally different concept. And it is one that has yet to really enter the visible debate. And there are things. So in any case, I respectfully disagree that it is, but I contend that it is still possible. And matter of fact, with an estimated $1 trillion defense budget, coming up, simply throwing a large amount of money at the problem is not enough. The United States could not do that even during World War II. They had to prioritize. They were facing a numerically superior alliance of Axis forces where they simply could not overwhelm them with sheer manpower. They had to be very clever and prioritize the allocation of their resources, substantial though they were, to prioritize them in order to defeat the Axis forces one at a time, not both at the same time. So even if they had to do it during World War II, they certainly have to do it now, even with an arguably larger budget. But I would say they have to. What is imperative for the Trump administration is to formulate and have in mind a clear, well-focused strategic doctrine that is designed to maximize its strengths and to effectively exploit, with a strategy of asymmetric response, the weaknesses of our adversaries, and in particular, their over-reliance on the power of nuclear missiles and nuclear weapons to support their foreign policy goals. If that can be achieved and can be done so quite rapidly, then it will have a major diplomatic and military effect on the world situation. And that
I
is
don't think that Putin or Xi or anybody would seriously care now about this possible Golden Dome or whatever you want to call it. Besides, I don't think that even Senate will approve Golden Dome because they will go into details. How much time would be required to build it, how much money it will cost to build it, and so on. That will fall apart on the floor of Senate in a matter of 30 seconds. It's not going to be even a debate about this because it has so many weak points. It's so unexplored. It's so unprepared. It's nothing but a brainchild. The same thing like take over Greenland or Canada or something like that. That's basically a dream project. It's not a serious project at this time whatsoever. Ivan, I'd like to ask you, what you and Kiev, people of Kiev, waiting what's happening in Istanbul on 15th of May?
Oh, something
your
will
turn with
happen
your
there.
Reed.
Yeah. Something will happen there, definitely. But we're quite persuaded that Putin will not come here. He is too cowardly to go there in such a short term without long-term preparements, because when he decides to travel somewhere like a month before a special flight with his securities come there and they prepare all those stuff. He's such a coward that he will not fly to Istanbul, and actually he will not meet Zelensky here because they've put so much effort into Russian propaganda to say that Zelensky is not legitimate, that Putin cannot meet Zelensky because he is a dictator, actually, and even Trump was influenced by this Russian propaganda narrative in the beginning, saying that Zelensky is a dictator which is ruling Ukraine without elections, and actually then he joked that I said this. Oh no, it was not what I meant, if you remember. So if Putin will meet Zelensky, it will mean that their propaganda was saying something not realistic, so it will be legitimated in Russian. And I've just read quite interesting opinion on one of Ukrainian Ukrainian guys who said that Putin is also afraid that Zelensky would humiliate him on this meeting, that Zelensky will say something in his manner that Putin will not be able to reply to, and it will decrease his reputation as a Tsar in Russia that is so powerful that no one can say nothing against him. It's quite an interesting opinion, actually. So besides of those facts, I'm not sure that Putin will go there. Someone will go.
He can meet him, Ivan. Sorry, he can meet him and say, "Hello, murderer. How are you?" And then what to reply to that?
So Zelensky used to be a comedian. So he has the ability to make him look really silly if he wants to.
And he will become a hero in the eyes of Ukrainians, actually, because they want him to humiliate Putin, to kick him, elementary not to shake his hand in the beginning of this meeting, because he is a criminal, he's a murderer. Those who issued orders to kidnap Ukrainian children, to bomb Ukrainian cities, and he actually started this war. So I'm not sure that it will be any good result in direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in Turkey, because there is a great opportunity that there were no direct negotiations, or they will not be, between Putin and Zelensky, and the minions of Putin like Lavrov or Ushakov, they will continue spreading all those Russian narratives and their silly requirements, like give up all Ukrainian territories, demilitarize your army, and blah blah blah.
Or you have to remove the reasons that led Russia to start the war. So you have to come back to 1997. You have to denounce all the new members of NATO and all that stuff, and then tell few more information about Pechenegi and
they're completely not negotiable. And I think that the greatest mistake of Trump was to start those peace negotiations process while Russia is not in the weakened position. Hopefully he will understand that Russia, while it's not in the weak position, is not negotiable, that their requirements towards Ukraine and towards NATO, they're just crazy, and they live in their own version of reality, which was created by Russian propaganda and those propaganda narratives, which they are believing themselves. Actually, they believe that Russia still has a mighty army which is able to defeat the NATO, that Russian tanks are able to come directly to La Manche, and the La Manche is the only thing why Russian tanks can't invade Great Britain. Actually, they're living in these narratives, despite their army is not able to capture the
8 months.
The rest of the Donetsk region for more than 3 years already. So after that, hopefully, Trump will stop speaking but start acting. Those which acting in the way he actually announced during his presidential campaign, that he will implement sanctions, that he will increase military support towards Ukraine to make Russia want the peace over the real conditions, actually. So,
and I would add, Ivan, that the Trump administration is seeing the same information that the rest of the world is seeing, that Russia's economic situation is growing steadily worse, that they are becoming less and less capable of prosecuting a war effort. Their military is showing no sign of dominating the battlefield. As a matter of fact, it's grinding to a halt. And so in both the economic and military factors, and arguably the diplomatic factors, are all shifting against Russia and preventing them from being able to sustain this war effort for more than a few months, and certainly not beyond 2025.
Yeah, the problem is that Trump wants to save Russia and to make Russia his ally towards the China.
In other words, I see what you're saying. Triangulate against China and apply pressure.
Yeah, but after the so-called parade of victory in Moscow on May 9th, you've seen that who was like a real Tsar in Moscow, not Putin, but Xi. Yeah, but Russia is so closely tied now to China, and Russian economy is so tied to China, and Russian military production is tied to China, that it's impossible to break apart their union and to move Russia towards United States as an American ally against China. It's like we were talking about the Second World War. It's like in 1940 to take Italy a part of Hitler and make Italy ally of Great Britain and United States. Like they have similar regimes. They're both despotic countries. They have much more in similar than United States and Russia. And the United States is enemy for Russia. It's enemy for Russian propaganda. It's enemy for Russian population. They claim United States is a source of all their of all their problems. If it's dirty in Russian house, or if the roof on the house is broken, when you ask a Russian citizen who is guilty in that problem, so they will say that it's all Americans. It's Obama who made our roofs of our houses broken, and they're being dirty. It's all Americans. It's all Obama. We have all the problems here. We have in Russia. We have because of the United States. It's what Russians were actually born with, because it was narratives of Soviet propaganda starting from the beginning of the Soviet Union, and now they became even worse.
Yeah, so given what you have said, Ivan, the more logical response for the United States, aside from supporting its European allies and Ukraine against Russia and not bowing to Russia's demands, the way to act against both Russia and China simultaneously in a way for which they are not prepared and which they do not expect is to emphasize the Golden Dome, divert all additional resources that we can to producing an asymmetric response that neutralizes both their nuclear arsenals, but it is quite clear that both nations rely a great deal on the intimidation effect of their nuclear arsenals as their main instrument to proclaiming great power status, as well as applying pressure against the West. If President Trump cannot ally with Russia against China or cannot divide them, then he must neutralize both by striking at the main source of their power and leverage. And so and that, along with supporting Ukraine and making sure that it remains a strong and sovereign nation, as the way if Germany gets its wish, Germany is saying that the path to NATO membership for Ukraine is irreversible. And therefore, if that takes place, then Ukraine will become the eastern bulwark of the NATO alliance. And that will be a highly favorable development, particularly, and I would contend, produce conditions that President Trump and or his successor would find highly attractive for investing in Ukraine and helping it recover and making it a strong, prosperous, and free nation. So there are still possibilities here. And I contend that, to borrow an old Soviet phrase, the correlation of forces is still moving in favor of Ukraine.
Well, I think that depends which way this meeting will happen in Istanbul.
I predict it won't happen.
You think it? Yeah,
I predict it falls apart. There's no reason. There's no compelling reason for it to succeed, because the Russians already shown their
agenda. What are they going to discuss on that meeting? Okay, they will have some cognac and some cakes, and then okay, who wanna talk? Well, nobody talk. There's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, so they have their cognac and cake, and they go home and declare victory. Now, right? That's not going to work. So
at least we know who is going to represent United States. It's Vitkov, and it's
and he's going to get an education.
General, and I don't think Vitkov can educate many people himself, including Trump, which he's doing very well. And all his education is Putin's narrative from A to Z. It's all his narrative. And Vitkov cannot even remember everything what is there. So as much as he remember, he doesn't know geography very well. He's not a student of history either. He's a New York developer. That's all what he is. So when
it's rather strange, don't you think, that a New York real estate developer doesn't know geography very well? Don't you think that's rather odd?
He knows geography of New York.
Yeah, he knows that. He knows that pretty well, but outside of that, he's kind of lost.
Well, maybe he
But
knows.
I hope at least he will take an interpreter to Istanbul and will not use the services of KGB interpreters, which were provided to him during his visits to Moscow. It's mind blowing, actually.
Don't ask me. Я не переводчик.
Yeah, you know that Russian keep a secret who is going to represent Russia. Peskov just said that we are working on it, but we are not going to make any declaration who is going to be part of.
They already said, actually, it
Who is
seems
it?
that Lavrov and Ushakov will represent
Oh my
Russia.
God! Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
horrible.
that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cover a
They-
regular life of the party guys.
They could have taken Zakharova just as well. If they will be serving cognac. people-
To drink with, yeah.
Well, okay. What I can say, we have very little time left before
yeah.
May 15th. In the meantime, we are getting to close our today's program, and I would like to thank you so much. Jonathan, you wanted to mention the book on this program that you are interested to talk
Oh,
about?
I mentioned it to Mark. You know, the
Oh.
basically the one that the Russian view of U.S. strategy, its past, its future. That even though we published that book, Kathleen and I published that book back in 1993. The interesting thing about that book, because it's the only book of its kind that explores the Russian view of how they see our strategy, and the predictions that we made in that book are coming true now. And what the book does for the readers, even though it stops short of the Putin era, what it does do is it explains to the reader why Putin thinks the way he does. And it shows because Putin was shaped by the Cold War. He cannot escape the environment that shaped his outlook. And the Russian art book explains why they have the attitude that they have now towards nuclear weapons, and even towards their attitude towards space, because we predicted that the Russians would continue to play to strength in their two main areas of advantage or potential advantage: nuclear weapons and the exploitation of space, which they are doing to this very day. And our other book, the Lockwood Analytical Method for Prediction, we used as a test case for that method the perception of the four former nuclear republics of the former Soviet Union, how they viewed the nuclear weapons issue. And what that does is, aside from providing the reader with an analytical framework for addressing future intelligence questions, it also provides a way of, it further explains why Russia and Ukraine view nuclear weapons the way they do, or the way they did, and why it's so critically important. So in any case, this I'm hoping that Mark will sort of run that as sort of a closing commercial, if you will, and that will be very useful. But in the meantime, for our readers, in case they are willing to search, and they can search the books. They are sold as ebooks if they can't you get a hard copy or anything like that. But if for our readers that are interested in understanding, having a greater depth of understanding why nations like Russia perceive power and nuclear weapons the way they do, it is an indispensable guide.
Excellent, Jonathan. Thank you so much. Ivan, thank you as well for today's program. And we'll see you on Friday, same place, same time, and maybe we will have many more news to discuss. In the meantime, thank you again, and Slava Ukraine. Glory to
God bless America. Yeah.
Thank you.
Героям слава. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
The highest court in Texas has ruled against Kate